Good evening and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Monday, August 6, 2012. I'm Tony Paniagua. One of Arizona's two U.S. senators, Jon Kyl, is retiring after he completes his present term. So those who want to replace him are trying hard to get your vote. We are inviting the major candidates in the primary election to speak to us on Arizona Illustrated. And tonight we begin with a former independent who is running as a Democrat but has worked for a Republican president. Christopher Conover has that interview.
Dr. Richard Carmona, thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure to be with you. Thanks.
Now, people in Tucson, southern Arizona know you from living here for a number of years. You were in the Pima County Sheriff's Office for a while. Of course, you were U.S. Surgeon General, and everybody knows you. Why, after all this time, would you decide to go to Washington again, but this time as an elected official, not sit back and enjoy beautiful southern Arizona?
Well, I get asked that question quite often, and I didn't have any aspirations to go into politics. But I've been home for a while now since leaving the office of the Surgeon General. Many of my friends and colleagues started calling and saying, you know, there's an absence of leadership, we need help, we need new blood, and I heard it over and over again. After lots of conversations over a long period of time, I finally figured it was the right thing to do.
Now, you were always characterized as an independent. You worked in the Bush White House, President George W. Bush as Surgeon General. You'd never really come out and done a lot politically. You decided to run as a Democrat. Why run as a Democrat versus a Republican or even an independent?
Well, certainly my independent streak is still with me. But reality makes us choose one side or the other. Unless you're extraordinarily wealthy and have an infrastructure in place, it'd be difficult to run on a national race like this independently. I chose the Democratic Party because when I looked at the issues confronting Arizona and the nation, on issues of women's health, on the issues of the border and immigration, I couldn't align with my colleagues on the Republican side. I felt more closely aligned with the Democrats. But, you know, I still see myself as an independent spirit and soul.
Right now, you have no primary. You are I guess, officially the presumptive Democratic nominee, but you have no primary. Initially, you did. Mr. Bivens dropped out. Now, the Republican side has four people in, two in particular, Will Card and Jeff Flake, really duking it out. They've got a tough primary over there. You've got it pretty easy. Is that an advantage for you?
Well, people tell me it is. This is my first time in public office, but, you know, I've been watching and learning. My learning curve is still steep, and many people say that it is an advantage to me. But I'm not paying a lot of attention there. It's a big state, and I've been out every day, all over the state, and repeatedly traveling and meeting people, and that's where I'm keeping my focus.
Systemically, politically, do you think it's better for the electorate, forget the primary, and just head into the general, or is it better to hear lots of similar ideas, maybe?
Well, I think the primary serves a purpose. Obviously, it's more or less a Darwinian process, you know, the survival of the fittest, and then the best two move forward. So, you know, I started out that way, but the other challengers who were on the Democratic side decided to drop out for their own reasons, and it left me a clear path forward.
Now, as we mentioned, you were Surgeon General, and outside of Tucson, most people probably don't know who the Surgeon General is. For our viewers, the current Surgeon General is Vice Admiral Regina Benjamin. We actually had to look that up. Most people don't know who the Surgeon General is. So how do you get your name out in a huge state?
Well, fortunately, I've been in the state, as you know, for over 27 years now. I've been here as a police officer, I've been as a doctor, a university professor, a businessman, running the county health system, the hospital. So as I look back on those 27 years, I've been in positions of responsibility that the community's come to know me. I've sat on the Board of Medical Examiners for many years, the emergency medical system, I chaired that for many years. So as opposed to your usual candidate who may not have any public exposure, I've had a great deal of public exposure, but now I am working to leverage that.
And you mentioned when we were talking before the interview, you put a few miles on the campaign car also.
We did, about 15,000 miles over the last couple of months, and we've been to every corner of the state, and we're starting to circle the state once again, and we're getting lots of good support, a lot of enthusiasm for my candidacy, but it's meeting one-to-one and with groups, different groups. Yesterday we met with veterans all over. Today we'll meet with veterans again, and we're meeting with women, we're meeting with the seniors, so I'm really enjoying meeting the people.
As you look towards November and your eventual Republican challenger or counterpart. What do you see the big issue of the race becoming as we head into November?
I think there's a number of issues, and I think we probably all are going to agree: jobs and the economy, the health issues, immigration is an issue that pops up, of course, in Arizona. Education is an issue. But really the bigger issue is that the people will have to make an important decision. They're going to have to discern between me and what probably will be Jeff Flake, but Will Cardin's in the race over there as well. And I think there are huge differences between the two of us in education and experience, in positions of responsibility where I've been held accountable over a quarter of a century serving the people.
Let's talk about some of those issues and some of those ideas. We keep hearing about jobs, new jobs report out now. How does a member of the government, in this case potentially the U.S. Senate, how do you create jobs back home?
Well, the fact of the matter is I don't think that any of us in an elected position actually create jobs, but we create an environment so that the private sector, the small business, the large business can thrive. Innovators can come in, entrepreneurs can come in with the next great idea and start those businesses based on the policies that we promulgate, based on the regulation we put in place or don't put in place to impede commerce. So all of those things are important. So I would look at myself more or less as a stimulus, a potential stimulus in the community, working through all of our elected officials to make sure that we set the right environment to be creative and let innovation and entrepreneurialism flourish.
You mentioned healthcare. Obviously, you're a doctor, you were Surgeon General.
Yeah.
The healthcare issue was, of course, the big issue 2 years ago. It's still out there. We've now had the U.S. Supreme Court ruling. If you were a member of the U.S. Senate when the original healthcare vote had come up, how would you have voted for that?
Well, first of all, I want to say that as it relates to healthcare, I've always been in favor of and promulgating the idea that every American should have access to a basic set of healthcare benefits. Where we're disagreeing, it appears now, is on the business plan to support that, how it should be done. Had I been there, I would have pushed the president to have a more robust business plan. I would have pushed the president to slow it down because I felt 2,500 pages of complex information is going to overwhelm the American public. They won't understand it because I've been there before as Surgeon General with other documents that were rolled out too quickly. But the concept, I fully support. The execution, I would have pushed hard, and I could not have supported it unless there were changes that provided a more robust business plan and there was an attempt to really reach the citizens so that they become health literate in this, understand it, and then demand it. And that helps us get it out.
Come November, if you win, you go to Washington in January, there may be some moves to make some changes. Are there incremental changes that can be made to the current health care law, or does it need to be scrapped even though it's been found constitutional by the court? Does it need to be scrapped?
No, I think that we need to continue the discussion, as I've alluded to, that what is the best business plan to be able to provide a basic set of health benefits to all Americans? Where will the revenue come from? But the other thing that hasn't been spoken of a lot is the public has to be engaged. We're spending 18% of our GDP on healthcare today, and it's really sick care, not healthcare. 75 cents of every dollar is being spent on chronic diseases, most of which are preventable. So we can't afford any longer to just give people insurance and say, smoke, drink excessively, don't wear a seatbelt, don't wear a helmet. They have to be engaged, and they have to pursue optimal health and wellness while we provide the infrastructure.
Let's talk about another big topic, especially here in southern Arizona, the border.
Yes.
Every candidate has some ideas on how to solve the border, so I will lay that out to you. How do we solve the border issues?
Well, the border issue is a complex one. And, as a police officer here for over 25 years, I've actually worked on the border with my colleagues in Border Patrol and ICE and all the other organizations, the military, the National Guard, reserves. I understand the border. I understand the culture because it's my culture as well. And it's a very complex issue. The challenge for us is to secure the border as quickly as we can. And you hear every politician talk about that. But the fact is, security is a dynamic issue. Because no matter what you do, your adversary is always trying to stay a step ahead of you. So it's measures and countermeasures to stop that. So the fact is, we're doing a fairly good job of this, but we can't become complacent. As long as there's demand for services on this side, as long as people want to sneak drugs in, it's going to be a challenge to us, and we have to just keep staying ahead of that game.
New poll out, League of Conservation Voters has you tied 38-38 with Mr. Flake, assuming that he becomes the Republican nominee. 25% undecided, though, in that. What does that poll say to you?
Well, the poll says to me, as well as other polls, that my team's strategy is working well. We're all working very hard, and this is a snapshot of a moment in time. And we keep getting more and more traction, more and more passionate people who want to support us. And so we're going to keep on working hard. But we're not getting complacent. In fact, we're going to work harder because we know that our plan is working.
It seems like you've been playing catch-up this whole time, but there is a long time still to go before November.
Yeah, I wasn't planning to run. I got in late, and I'm running against a congressman who's been there for 12 years. So, of course, I had a late start. But I think it's very, very promising that at this point, with a little over 3 months left, we're in a tie.
On the money end, money is a big issue, especially in a statewide race, a U.S. Senate open seat. It's a rarity. Mr. Carmona on the Republican side has or you have actually, $1.5 million on hand according to the Federal Election Commission. Yeah. Mr. Cardin has $2.3 million. Mr. Flake has $2.7 million. How important is money, and does money win a U.S. Senate race?
Well, the money helps to get your message out. That's really what the issue is. So, the bought media that you have to do, and you have earned media, but sending out the handouts, paying for your people that work in the offices, all of that. So it's important. But I will point out that, my second full quarter since running, we outraised Jeff Flake by over $200,000 last quarter. So, we're coming from behind, but we're coming up strong, and people are responding to my candidacy.
You mentioned Mr. Flake. We've talked about Mr. Cardin also. You're a Democrat. You can't run. You can't vote in this primary. But do you have a preference on who you'd like to run against in the fall?
It really a lot of people ask me that, Christopher, and it really doesn't make that much of a difference to me because there's a chasm of difference between me and either one of them in education and experience and training, in positions of responsibility where I've had to do all the things that are needed in this state and the nation. So I welcome either one, however the public chooses, and I look forward to debates with them on the issues.
You've characterized yourself as an independent. As we said, you're registered as a Democrat, but characterize yourself as an independent. Assuming you get to Washington for a moment, you may be facing an interesting political landscape within the halls of Congress. How do you expect to be able to work with your colleagues across the aisle, potentially a Republican president, maybe not? That all is yet to be seen.
Well, I think the issues for the American public are they're tired of all this partisanship. They want somebody to solve problems. And that's not a Democrat or Republican party issue. That's an American issue. And so I will do what I did as Surgeon General. I had to work both sides of the aisle as Surgeon General on issues of health, safety, and security that I had some responsibility for. I made good friends on both sides of the aisle. And in fact, both sides of the aisle have recruited me for a job. When I was Surgeon General, the Republicans tried to get me to run for governor, for congressman. Now the Democrats come. I'm very proud that my independence shines through and they see leadership there, and I'm going to keep working that as best I can.
All right, Dr. Richard Carmona, Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate here in Arizona. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks. Happy to be with you.
Thanks.
Summer's high temperatures, humidity, and occasional severe storms are a serious challenge for Tucson's homeless population. But some are finding needed relief at a local cooling center. Producer and photojournalist Mitch Riley has this story.
During the hot days of summer in southern Arizona, we all find ourselves searching out shade, air conditioning, and cool water. For those without homes in our community, finding relief from the heat is a daily challenge. One place where some comfort and hospitality can be found is the St. Francis Cooling Center, which is housed at the Central City Assembly of God near 19th Street and 10th Avenue.
And then these are the volunteers for each day. And like I didn't do my total yesterday, so 15, 30, 45, 55, 65, 70, 71, 71, 10 women. And lately it's been running about between 75 and 85.
Carl Zawatsky is co-coordinator of the St. Francis Cooling Center. He says the center is open to men and women.
Anybody is welcome to come in, treated with hospitality. Hospitality, dignity, some cold water, a nice lunch, a cot to lay down, get refreshed, get off the street. No lunches yet, but come on in, guys. Get rehydrated, get a little bit of nourishment, and just relax. in a safe environment, you know, because it's not easy on the street.
This is the 7th summer that the St. Francis Cooling Center has been in existence, and the 2nd year it's been housed exclusively at this location. The center is open 6 days a week from 12 noon to 4:30 p.m. Throughout the year, approximately 40 people volunteer at the center. 75 lunches a day are provided by Caridad Community Kitchen, which is a program of the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona.
Lunches will be here in a little bit. We got some fruit punch. And some guys will go over, pick up a magazine and read. There's no music unless they want to put headphones on, get to that cold water, and then relax, lay down, take a nap. Some of the guys just kind of shoot the bull in between each other.
Life on the street without a home means maintaining a constant awareness of your surroundings. For many here, it's a chance to let their guard down, rest their bodies and their minds, and even get some uninterrupted sleep in a safe and comfortable environment.
We look forward to 12 o'clock every day to come in here and relax for 4 hours. We're safe, we're cool, and we can sleep knowing that nothing's going to hurt us here.
Johnny is 62 years old and has been living without a home for the past 3 years. Along with the need for food, water, and shelter, he says the heat and other weather-related factors are a constant challenge.
The heat really is something that wears you down because it's there, constantly there, beating on your back, your head, your body. You get cold water. In 15 minutes, it's hot. So you're drinking hot water. You have to, because you get dehydrated.
Dehydration, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and sunburn are among the many health risks that Tucson's homeless face each day.
If you ain't strong enough, you're going to get a stroke. You're going to lose weight. Because the clothes, you're sweating. And pretty soon, if you're walking, the clothes will stick to your body because it's so damn hot.
Yeah, there's 3 boxes for today and 3 for tomorrow.
The lunches have arrived, and everyone in the center is starting to cool off. Zawatsky says they try to keep the temperature in the room around 76 to 78 degrees.
Nice meeting you.
The St. Francis Cooling Center was founded by Brother David Bior, a Franciscan friar of the St. Barbara province. Bior, who was unavailable for an on-camera interview, says the number of homeless visiting this cooling center is up from last year, when there were 50 to 60 people coming to the center each day. Now the numbers are in the 70s and 80s. Bior, or Brother Dave as he is known in the homeless community, sits on the executive committee of the Tucson-Pima Collaboration to End Homelessness, or TPCH. He says the annual overhead for the St. Francis Cooling Center is $4,500, and for the past 6 years those funds were raised through private donations. This year the TPCH has agreed to fund the center through expense reimbursements. The monies go to pay for utilities and supplies.
I don't think there's a homeless guy in town that doesn't know of or have seen Brother Dave, and he always wears his Franciscan robe with his beard. The guys are just in love with him. He cares so much about these people that he wants 5-star treatment given to these guys with what we have. But the main thing is just is dignity, is giving these people some dignity and respect for the day.
While Carl Zawatsky works to facilitate the efforts of the Cooling Center, he can relate directly to where these men and women have been and what they are going through.
The guys like it sweet. I was there at one time, and you know, when you wind up on the streets, you say, oh my God, like how did this happen? And it's not real easy to get off the streets. And when you got the clothes on your back and no money in your pocket, you can't even afford a toothbrush or a haircut, it's hard to go in for a job interview. But for the grace of God, and it's a story in itself, I wound up getting off the streets. And I'll never forget the people that helped me and you know, the grace that was given to me to get off the streets. And it's because it's not a happy place.
Along with being homeless at one time in his life, Zawatsky also happens to be a recovering alcoholic and sees the time he spends here as part of his recovery.
A big part of recovery, to live well within your skin, is restitution in whatever form that covers. but restitution for harms done. It makes you grateful for what you have, and knowing that some twist in life, you could be right here. Whether you're recovering or you're not recovering, I just think the world would be a better place if we were just kind of keeping an eye out on the guy next door just a little bit.
As the time to leave the cooling center draws near, these men and women begin to gather their things and prepare to head back out to the streets. Some have books, some have backpacks, others have only the clothes on their back and the shoes on their feet. Their time here has allowed them to rest, rehydrate, and maybe gather the strength to get through another day.
So we got a little bit more strength. But come 4 o'clock, we gotta set our minds to go back where we were at 12 o'clock. Because we put on our backpacks, the doors open, we just go. But our mind is a little bit more refreshed.
As they leave, they have some kind of container. Most of the guys will go into the fruit punch or the water, fill up their container for whatever trek is waiting for them as they get out of here. And then tomorrow morning when I come back, it's like I'll put the cots back out and just start all over.
For more information about this story, community involvement, and related resources for the homeless, please visit our website, azpm.org.
We continue the conversation about some of the challenges being faced by our homeless population and some of the groups that are trying to help them. For that, we are joined by Sarah Tawil. She is the program coordinator for Comin Home. It's a nonprofit organization that has helped nearly 4,000 homeless veterans since 1989. Sarah, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So I think a lot of people don't know that there is this ongoing problem with veterans who need a place to stay, and you see them every day.
We do. Again, Comin Home is a transitional housing facility for veterans where we offer first and foremost housing, but also intensive support services to help folks get back on their feet, financial independence, behavioral health services, basic needs, and then really just continue with a healthy life.
And you say that on a typical day you can house up to 50 homeless veterans?
Yes, correct. Our maximum capacity is 52 veterans, and we can offer case management services, group services, whether it's within our system, whether it's within the VA or other community service providers. We really help find what that individual needs and then help connect them to those services.
And right now your organization is working on a program called the 100-Day Challenge. What is that all about?
So we started this initiative back in 2010 with the 51 Homes Coalition, looking at housing the most chronically homeless individuals and rapidly and permanently housing them, and putting them into housing first and then offering the support services. And so what the 100 Days Challenges came about just this past May. It's the same concept, but it's a focus on veterans. So our goal is to house 50 chronically homeless veterans by August 14th. We're about at 34 right now, so we're working hard to meet our goal.
And then one of the challenges for the organization and others is that some people still think that homelessness is quote, a choice, that some people choose to be out on the street, that they don't really pick themselves up by their bootstraps and make a difference in their lives.
Right, and it's most often not the case. So whether it's due to a tragedy, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, a physical accident, people find themselves experiencing homelessness just from all sorts of different circumstances, many of which are not in the individual's control. And once given the opportunity to move into housing, folks are ready to do so, especially when they know that they can move into housing first and then work on whether it's seeking treatment for a behavioral health concern or finding employment, getting stable again. It's really that first step, the housing piece, that makes all these other things become possible for that person.
And then we were speaking prior to this interview about the challenge of getting out of homelessness because there's so much paperwork entailed, and then you come across these circles, just going around in circles in some cases. Right.
So, for example, most services you need a state ID card. It's often hard to get a state ID card if you don't have a birth certificate. We know folks who experience homelessness move a lot depending on the resources. So it's trying to track down birth certificates, ID cards, social security cards, and you usually need one to get the other. So it's hard to know sort of where to enter into the system, so to speak, and how to start that whole process. So just one of the many barriers we see folks dealing with.
All right, Sarah Tawui, thank you very much for joining us, and we will have a link on our website for people who may be interested in volunteering or donating. Thank you.
Wonderful, thanks.
All right. In tonight's video postcard, we take you to the sculpture garden at the Jewish Community Center, where you can enjoy the arts in a quiet and relaxing location. You can get more news and information on our website, azpm.org. To comment on any story you saw tonight, click on it online and go to the bottom. We can also be reached via Facebook and Twitter. Coming up tomorrow night, millions of people are paying attention to the case involving Jared Lee Loughner. We'll hear from experts about the legal ramifications. Also, August is Drowning Impact Awareness Month. We'll learn more about these preventable tragedies. I'm Tony Paniagua. From all of us at Arizona Public Media, have a great night.